So I'll start here. Don't make me laugh. Okay. Hey, all right, welcome. Oh, it's too close. Hey, guys, welcome back to Team Oil Drop. I've got my sister, Kara, here, who was a medic in the Air Force and also did some time in the Army. And then my team medic, Ruben,
Hello.
who is a 68 Whiskey in the Army right now. And we're going to talk about scenes or what you should do when you might be involved in a car crash or you arrive on the scene of a car crash. And then we'll go into, eventually, on the second part, very common items that are good to have in your truck, car, what have you, that could save your life or someone else's life one day. Now, disclaimer, this is not a medical class. This is simply just a free talk about some very important information, and we're going to dive right in. So I'll hand the mic over to my sister.
Thank you.
And Tara, give me 30 seconds of whatever about your time as a medic in the Air Force or anything.
I mean, it's definitely different than the 68 Whiskey with the Army. They're more combat orientated, where mine was like a 4-in position. So I'd mostly work the ERs or different like medical hospital like facilities and stuff like that. But yeah, mine was much more, me personally, I worked the ER mostly. So depending on where I worked, because I worked at Fort Sam for a while in in San Antonio, and we saw a lot of stuff, a lot of car accidents.
A most common victim you had, or a very common victim, was car accident victims.
Most of the time, because we would get civilian casualties most of the time because we're right off the highway there. So it wasn't just like something happened on post there.
Yeah.
We would get a lot of civilian car accidents mostly.
So what would you say would be the most common cause of death in a car accident?
Definitely brain injuries or bleeding, I would see mostly because, I mean, we one time had this woman who was like crossing the street and got hit by a Ford F-150 going 60 miles an hour and just obliterated her. Yeah.
Any chance of survival there?
She did not, unfortunately. We got her to the OR, but it was mostly internal bleeding, just pelvic fracture, spinal fracture, TBI, all of it. She unfortunately did not make it.
Yeah, so internal bleeding will be a very common cause then. Yeah. And then...
Did she make it to the OR?
She did make it to the OR, yeah.
That's
shockingly
surprising.
enough.
Yeah.
She did make it to the OR, but we were doing CPR on her and trying to get an IV, but it was just... She did make it to the OR, though.
Okay, and then Ruben, as a battlefield combat medic in the Army, what is the most common cause of death on the battlefield?
Absolutely massive hemorrhaging. If you think about what we're doing out there, especially with IEDs and bullets and rockets and all types of penetrative devices out there, it's always massive hemorrhaging for us.
So massive hemorrhaging would be then like massive bleeding from an extremity, right?
Right, exactly. So when you talk about that, you have to talk about it, preventable death and non-preventable death. As far as preventable death goes, you're talking about the extremity bleeding because you can actually do something to stop that from killing a casualty.
Gotcha. Okay, so either one of y'all, and then maybe both, you can weigh in on it, but first thing you want to do if, let's say, you arrive on the scene of an accident that you're not involved with. You just witnessed a car roll over, T-bone another car. There's 1,000 variables, Team Oil Drop guys here, so there's no one right answer. But if you just witnessed a typical car crash, let's say the car's not on fire, but the driver got T-boned, what's the first thing you're probably going to do after, of course, calling 911?
I mean, that's definitely the first step is, of course, like you said, calling 911 to get them, on the scene, because otherwise you can get so caught up in all the drama of trying to do something, your adrenaline's high. Me personally, I haven't seen someone T-boned, but when it came to rollovers, I was the first on the scene with a massive rollover on the highway in Texas again. And
Where at in Texas?
It was actually headed to San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
I did a lot of Air Force work in San Antonio. So I was first on scene, and what I did was, of course, I called 911, but when I pulled over, I was far back enough where I could, see that it just happened. And I was about probably 100 feet back. I blocked one side of the road, so it would protect me and the casualty, the person, the person who just flipped. And so my car was like a barrier, if you will, to prevent anyone else just not paying attention to the road, because there's so many casualties with EMS personnel every year.
So that's a great point. You're setting up your cars not only a barrier, but you're turning your hazards on.
Right.
What you'd say, like 100 feet at least.
At least 100 feet, because
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. People just immediately want to help and do something, but like if you get yourself, hurt, then you're just another problem to the situation.
And that's something else we want to say here. So by no means are we saying you are responsible to help on the scene of a crash, but if you have the desire, or you feel the need to help, or maybe you are the only person on some backcountry road and you can save a life and you want to be a good Samaritan, then this is kind of what this video is for, is just an open discussion about how you possibly could end up saving someone or multiple people's lives or your own.
Right.
So same question to you, Ruben. Anything you'd want to add on first thing on arriving on the
Absolutely.
scene?
I think Kara did a good job of covering that. The one thing that I would say is do not make yourself a casualty as well. So her parking 100 feet away, because you never know what condition the vehicle is in. If fuel is leaking from the vehicle, all it needs is something to ignite it. It's Texas, hot as. Let me cut that out.
Cut that out.
It's hot. Anything could ignite the fuel or any kind of fluid that's coming out of the car. So the biggest thing you can do is just do not make yourself a casualty.
Yeah, and on that note of igniting things, of course, gasoline is highly flammable. We all know that. But when a car gets crunched or a truck gets crunched, so does all that wiring. So you have exposed wiring that's still live connected to the battery, just ready to set off or spark fuel. So running up to a car right after it's been hit, you got to be intelligent about this. So Ruben's saying don't make yourself a casualty too, which is very common on the battlefield as well.
Exactly.
Ruben, when someone, let's say a section, squad, platoon's walking down a road, and someone takes a shot and goes down, what is the first action everyone else is going to do?
We take cover, and then we start trying to figure out what the shot came from, and then we start shooting in that direction.
Yeah.
The first thing you do is definitely do not run to that person, no matter how close you are to them.
Yeah, and we see it all the time in reality and in movies, of course, but when you go straight after the casualty, usually you become a casualty yourself. But I'm leading off onto a tangent here, so we'll get back on track.
It's hard not to.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
Right.
Yeah, and again, this is just an open discussion, so it's a good thing.
But I'd say the main theme is assessing and setting up scene safety is the first thing
Scene
always.
safety.
After 911. 911 always, yeah. And then in a terrible scenario, maybe there's no cell signal, but in 2024, that's not super common. Kara, do you want to elaborate a little bit on your experience in that car crash?
Yeah, that one right there. I mean, what I did, like I said, I set up my vehicle to be a blockade, basically, but not blocking both lanes so emergency EMS could get through. But, also preventing someone, it hits my car rather than me and the other people, yeah. But so I ran up there, and luckily there were a couple other guys that pulled over too. And because it was a rollover, the doors were just smashed. I mean, they were just smashed shut. And so the only thing we could do is literally like pry open the doors. And so it was me and one other dude. We just literally just pried open these doors, and
I'm surprised you could get
yeah, I was surprised too, honestly, because it was a big truck, and so we got the doors open. Then we talked to the dude, because you don't want to immediately try to move them. Oh yeah,
Something
thank
to
you.
talk about also, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you don't ever want to try to immediately move them unless the scene is unsafe, like let's say a fire is starting or something like that, because I too have come up on a in flames vehicle. I seem to attract those for some reason.
So explain when, and both of y'all elaborate a little bit, if you would, on when not to move a casualty.
I mean, most of the time you don't want to move them. You want more of the professionals to be able to move them, because you're going to want to mobilize the spine just in case if there was a spinal or head injury. But again, really only move them if it is like life-threatening
That's exactly
situations.
what I was gonna say.
Life-threatening.
Yeah,
And a lot of
yeah.
times they'll try to move themselves, and if they can, then don't stop them, I guess, for the most part.
Yeah, if they're moving themselves,
If they're moving
they're probably
themselves.
not so. I mean, not in not all cases. There's a lot of scenarios here, but
Right.
their spine is intact, and that's important because trauma to the spine, like we said earlier, is one of the main killers in a car
Causes,
crash.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It gets difficult to determine when not to move, because a lot of the time the vehicle rolled over, yes, but can you tell if there's fluid or any kind of flammable anything coming
Right.
out of the vehicle? you can't. Sometimes you kind of think there is, and you need to get this person away from that situation, and you might move a person when you don't need to.
Yeah.
Being a medical personnel is a lot to do with being a detective as well. And sometimes you will make a wrong call.
Yeah.
So you just have to be, just like Harris said, assess the situation really well before you put your hands on anyone.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll try to move themselves. Like if they're
Exactly.
unconscious, and just kind of leave them be and let medical personnel cut the seatbelt off, move them, because a lot of times with car accidents, depending on the side of impact, like their legs are going to be pinned. So don't try to just try to move them out unless it's something's about to catch on fire.
Yeah, when you mentioned seatbelt cutter, that reminded me a guy on Tacoma World made a post recently. He's actually one of the customers.
I have one in my car right there.
Exactly.
I have one on my knife.
So he posted, he was in a rollover in his Tacoma. His whole family was in there. Thankfully, they were all wearing their seatbelts, but he could not get out without cutting his seatbelt. He emailed me this story and sent me pictures and everything. So a seatbelt cutter is simply just a small razor blade enclosed in some kind of housing. So let's say I gain consciousness and I'm the victim, and my seatbelt will not disconnect, or I can't get to it because the vehicle's crunched, the Tacoma's crunched, hopefully not. This will be able to slice through the belt. Now I keep another one up in the cab that's even like a Benchmade, I guess fancier than this. No, I'm sorry, I keep it in my go bag here, which we'll talk about. But this is a glass breaker and a belt cutter, which should be accessible to the driver at a minimum fairly often, because we're talking about something that hopefully never happens to any of y'all or any of us, but that day can come. So knowledge is important. Now, I want to talk about real quick, again, 99% of the viewers here are not medical personnel, so you have to be careful of being too bold and the dangers of interfering. If you arrive on a scene, Kara, Ruben, and there's already EMS and an ambulance on scene, tell me what you are going to do. Well, so y'all have a medical background, so I assume you guys would, if you have the ability, just pull over, and if there's a chance to help, but you're not going to interfere.
I mean, pretty much, unless it's a mass casualty, like a
Exactly.
big, they are
right out of my
exactly.
mouth.
Yeah, unless it's a mass casualty, like you just leave them alone. I
Yep.
mean, for the most part, anytime when you see any kind of EMS system, whether it be ambulance, police, or combination of all, fire truck, just get out of the way. What you need to do, I know it gets really confusing, like, oh crap, I'm in the left lane and they're trying to pass me. Like, just pull off to the side of the road and let them do their job.
Yeah.
But pretty much, I mean, if there's already people on scene, the best thing you can do is not slow down and look and be nosy. Keep traffic going.
Yeah, so let's recap real quick before we dive into the bag section, and then I'll give you guys a chance to add some closing comments. But call 911. Do not interfere unless you are a medical professional or you feel you can help. And if there's no medical coverage on site and you are ready and willing and you feel like you can assist, know when to move or not move a casualty. And then, guys, any closing comments you want to
Assessing scene safety.
Where to park, get out of the road. Don't end up in one of those dash cam videos where we see where cops and state troopers or bypassers get hit on the highway all the time. If you're watching this video, you probably have a Tacoma. You can get not on the shoulder, but you can get off the shoulder. You can get into the ditch almost in most scenarios because you have the best truck in the entire world. Better than Hondas, better than
Ford Rangers.
Yeah, better than
Ford Rangers.
Ford.
Nothing better than Rangers.
Yeah. Anyway,
If there's medical personnel on the scene, you can assume that they notice that if it's a mass casualty event, they've already assumed that they need help and they've called for that help. Right? You may stop and ask, do you guys need help? I'm a medical personnel or I have medical training. But more chances than not, they've already radioed up for that
Very
help,
true.
and it's already on the way.
It's very true.
And then I guess in also closing comments, I wanted to mention that we talked about like spinal trauma. massive hemorrhaging, which is usually in a car crash internal. But some things we're going to cover when we go to the bag here in a second is how to stop massive hemorrhaging from an external wound, because like we said on the battlefield, massive hemorrhaging is the number one killer, and it can be a very common killer in a car crash as well. So I think we're good. I think we're going to continue this on the next episode where we dive right into the bag. Anything else, guys?
Nope, not for me. Like I always say, if you think about massive hemorrhaging, think about what you can prevent and what you can't prevent. As a driver driving on the road, you see an accident, internal hemorrhaging, there's nothing you can do for that. You treat it with diesel and get that person as quickly to the hospital as possible. So think about it.
And I was like, wait a minute.
You drive,
yeah.
Give them an IV full of diesel.
Yeah.
Get them out of there as fast as possible. You know?
Roll coal. All right. Kara, anything?
No, I mean, that was pretty much it. We covered, what I think the most important thing is just really seeing safety. If you do want to help, just make sure you're taking care of yourself before you become a casualty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say, viewers, if you have any stories of similar situations, or maybe you are EMS or police, firefighters, or military background, please tell us in the comments. Greg the editor, we love to reply and chat about all these things, or hop into the Discord. The link's in the comment. Kara's in there. Ruben will be in there one day.
One day.
No, but we're chatting all the time in there. So we love to talk to y'all. So as always, as cringy as it is, give us a like and shut up. Hey,
subscribe to my channel.
You better. Anyway, so we're gonna dive into the bags. Hey guys,
like, subscribe, smash that subscribe button,
Mr. Beast. Anyway, so we're gonna dive into the medical bag next. So thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out, and see you next time.
No.
Good.
No.
Good.
Hey, thanks for watching, y'all, and please give Ruben and Kara thanks for coming out from y'all down in the comments below. It's always appreciated. We try to get, I could call it guest stars on the channel, but there'll be part 2 coming soon where we'll dive into the bag and all the equipment that's inside of it and what that equipment does. So maybe you want to equip your truck with similar one day. But until then, I'll see you again soon.